specifically based on the foundation course in English. The foundation course in English, and the title of the program is the foundation course, Structure, Teaching Strategies and Evaluation. Let me now introduce you to the guests who are with us, to the resource persons who are here with us in the studios. I have with me here Professor Jacob Tharu from the Central Institute of English and Foreign Languages, who is an expert and has contributed to our foundation course by way of giving us advisory comments and suggestions. We also have with us Mrs. Shailaja, who is an academic counselor and who has specialized in writing skills. The two experts will make brief presentations and introduce you to the subject that you have before you in your foundation course in English. Before I ask the presenters to give you an introduction to the materials, let me tell you a little bit about this foundation course, about language skills, a little bit about language skills, and about the justification or the reasons why we have thought it necessary to have a foundation course of this kind. As you know, all the material that we send you, the university sends you, is in the form of self-instructional material. That is, we call it self-instructional material. It is learner-oriented or learner-friendly. What we mean by this is that you, the learner, have to go through this material, have to read the material which is provided to you by the university. This is more important, even more important when we're talking about language skills. That is the reason why we have felt it necessary to introduce a skills-oriented course for you this year, that is from the academic year 1999-2000. Apart from that, another aspect we have taken into consideration is that it is a study skills course. That is, it takes the academic skills like reading skills and writing skills into account, and we have tried to break them up into smaller skills or sub-skills and present them before you. I will now request Professor Tharu to talk to us or to tell us a little bit about the reading skills part of the course.
Good afternoon, viewers. Before I start talking about the reading units, I'll add one or two lines to what Dr. Ramakrishna has just said about language skills. The purpose of this unit, the units in this book, reading and writing, are to help you with your studies. Because if you have self-instructional materials, most of the time you are working on your own. And it's only when you go to contact programs that you have the tutor, which means that you should be able to read the lessons and read other materials on your own and also write. Now, with regard to reading, the important commitment or the objective of these units on reading is to make you independent readers. Being an independent reader means that when you find something you have to read, a notice, a letter, an application form, or something in the newspaper, or a book or a magazine, you should be able to read it without the teacher standing there to explain to you or to translate into the mother tongue. Now, this is what these units try to do. And in this sense, this set of units is very different from most textbooks or school textbooks that you are used to, because what we have here is material that is intended to help you practice reading. In other words, you have to do a lot of the reading yourself. So it's important to understand that what this book contains is not a set of topics, chapters on topics like you have in history or in botany or in economics, which you have to study topic by topic. This has a series of passages on different types of topics. The topics don't matter. What matters is that you have a range of topics passages which you have to read on your own. So the important point is that you have to practice reading on your own.
It's now, maybe also different, isn't it, from the earlier material? You could explain that perhaps?
Yes, earlier materials usually had a long chapter with a few questions and problems at the end. Now, if you look at your course materials, especially the units on reading, and this is true of writing also, you'll find that almost every page has some instructions and some exercises. And I think it's very important that you understand why this is there, because the exercises are meant for you to do. They're not for the teacher to do, they're not problems for the teacher to solve, they're something for you to practice. And I think it's important that you understand this, because many students somehow say that we don't understand and go to the teacher for help. I'll illustrate this problem and this issue with an example from the field of driving lessons. Now, supposing I'm taking a driving lesson and I've had some practice and I get to a busy crossroads. Now, if at that point, if my driving instructor says, okay, you move out, I'll drive the car through the crossroads, that solves one problem. We have crossed the crossroads, but I have lost my opportunity to practice. And the same thing happens in reading. If you don't work on those exercises and try to get the answer yourself, and either a teacher or a friend gives you the answer, you've learned the answer, but you've lost an opportunity to practice. So this is the central principle underlying all these units on reading, that there are exercises which you must practice on your own. And maybe I'll say a little more about this when I speak again.
I'd now request Mrs. Shailaja to talk about the writing units. The units, we have 12 units, as you know, on writing skills. Could you tell us about the writing skills and also explain the way Professor Tharu has done, how they are different from other writing tasks which we had before in the earlier syllabus?
Yeah, sure. I would just like to begin by saying that there is a general misconception that good writers have an inborn ability to write. But that is not true. It is true partially, because writing well is not an inherited ability at all. It is a skill that every one of us can almost practice and achieve or develop that skill. Just as Professor Tharu was mentioning about the reading skills, writing skills too have certain characteristics of their own, and they have sub-skills too. In your material, if you look at blocks 3 and 4, you can find that there is a steady progression from forms of writing which are more structured to less structured forms of writing. Now, more structured forms of writing include writing a notice, writing an announcement, or filling up a form, and writing a brief note or writing an extract from your academic texts, etc. Whereas forms of writing which have less structures included are essay writing, précis writing, or creative writing. To be more specific, if you take the example of filling up of a form, supposing there is a student who has done the graduation and would like to apply for universities abroad. Now he needs to fill up an application form wherein certain personal details are to be mentioned, but the main focus or the purpose for which he is sending in the application form has to be clear. The authority or the dean of that particular department who is going to scrutinize your application form should find that you are worthy to continue as their student or to be a part of their education system. So it's not just filling up details, personal details and one word or something, but writing out something like a plan or an objective or a purpose. Yes, that's true. Because you have to include certain aspects such as any competitions that you have won, or make a mention of any extracurricular activities you took part and have won a medal or something. These things matter when you send an application form to an university. Now, there is a different kind of application form wherein a student after graduating is applying for a job. Therein, your employer should be satisfied whether you are going to fit into his organization or not. For that, you need to again focus, apart from your personal information, on certain aspects such as if you have had any part-time experience, or you would have headed a committee in your school or college where you have experience in certain field, etc.
So it means bringing in a lot of detail and then organizing it in a particular manner. So could you say how we have tried to do it in our course material as well?
Yeah, the course material, if you see, has detailed explanations about how to begin a task, what are the areas which you should concentrate or focus on when you attempt a task, how to go about planning. There are different stages in writing. First of all, you need to plan or put down the ideas on paper, then maybe start with each idea and expand it into a paragraph, and then incorporate it into the task which is given to you.
So,
I'll add something which reinforces that from the reading area. As Ms. Shailaja just said, writing has a number of sub-skills which you have to practice, being grammatically correct, organizing, then adding the relevant information, planning and so on. Now, if you look closely through your book, you'll find that the reading units also help you with this. For instance, the first unit in reading says reading short text. Now these are very small pieces, very simple pieces, and there's no problem understanding it. This is just to get you familiar with what I called earlier independent reading. This is something you should be able to read without looking to anyone for help.
Yes. In fact, the first kind of reading one
That's
does
right.
for out of interest.
Right. So that gets you into the habit of reading. Now then the next two units are very important. One says locating information. Now unit 2 tells you about locating information that you need. And a lot of the examples there are about tables of the page in a book which says table of contents. You have it right at the beginning. So whenever you pick up a book or you go into a building and you find a directory over there, it says first floor, second floor, third floor, you should be able to know where to go. So this is the sort of information that you get which also helps you with planning and organizing. So you open a book, you want to know which part, like let's say the prospectus of a university. Now, which are the pages which talk about the courses that are available? Which are the pages which talk about the eligibility conditions? Which are the pages which talk about scholarships? Now, instead of running all the way through the book, if you get to the table of contents, you can get there quickly. Now, that is something that should help you with thinking about organizing your writing as well. And I'll just add one more important point about the reading materials. The third unit is about using a dictionary. Now here again, as I said earlier, this book is not made up of topics to be covered. So it's not as though once you've read about how to use a dictionary and the teachers explained it, it's over. The section on using a dictionary is to give you a skill which you should use over and over again. There are many types of dictionaries. In school you might have seen very small dictionaries which may have had maybe 300 or 400 words, and in high school you might have had a bigger dictionary, both in English and in Telugu or in Hindi. And as university students, quite often we use thing called, at least in English, something called the Advanced Learners Dictionary and others which may have 8,000 or 10,000 or 20,000 words. And then of course in libraries you'll have,
special dictionaries for different subjects.
Yes.
Dictionaries for different subjects, and these huge big dictionaries which have 2 lakhs words and 3 lakhs words and so on. Now all of us use dictionaries, even we. Whenever we are reading something that is slightly difficult, if you don't see a word, if you come to a word that we don't know, we go and use a dictionary. Now, if you know how to use a dictionary, you're skilled in using a dictionary, then at least the difficult words you can find out what their meanings. And then you go back to the text, and that helps you maybe understand that sentence and slowly get the meaning of the passage. So the ability to use a dictionary is a very important general skill. And I want to appeal to all of you to look at unit number 3 very carefully and practice using the dictionary. It is something that it should help you throughout this book, and more importantly, in every other book that you have to read. If you're reading something in economics or sociology or history, you will find difficult words, and the best way to help yourself with it is to go to the dictionary and find the meaning of the word.
Professor Tharu, we talk about skimming and scanning. These are supposed to be the kind of skills, reading skills we use for locating information. Could you just distinguish between them? Because though we use them, we have used some of them perhaps in the book also, but could you distinguish between the two to help our learners?
Yes, I think that helps me to explain another important point about reading skills. As I said, it's not topics that are covered in units on reading, but skills. So one of the important skills is what we call scanning or locating information. This is, as I said, going through a dictionary, finding the word in the dictionary. You should be able to get very quickly to the relevant page in the dictionary because you know that words are in an alphabetical order. It's like going into a table of contents and finding something. Sometimes you want to find your friend's or somebody's telephone number. You go to the telephone directory and you should be able to go very quickly and get the information. Now that is called scanning because you know what you're looking for and you should be able to find it very quickly. So if you're looking for an advertisement in a newspaper, usually the second page of the newspaper has a lot of very small advertisements in it, and you're looking, let's say, for a second-hand car, or you're looking for somebody who will repair a TV set, or you're looking for a place where you can rent a house, you should be able to go through very quickly instead of wasting your time, get to it quickly. Now that is a skill that's very important because, again, for those of you who are in the distance education courses, you have many books to read. You have a lot of reading to do on your own, and it's important that you don't waste a lot of time hunting all over the place for what you need. So scanning, getting information, locating it in table of contents, in directories and in other types of text is a very important skill. Another one which comes closer to actually reading material is what we call skimming. Now skimming is a very important skill that we should all develop because one of the problems that many students face is that every piece of paper they get, they read very carefully. Now, what we need is to be able to judge that certain things you read through very quickly, you only want to get a general idea. For instance, let's say a lot of things are happening now in the news around the thing. There's, okay, an actor has been kidnapped, he's in prison somewhere in Tamil Nadu. Now you've read something in one newspaper. Now you want to look at another newspaper. You want to quickly go through and see, are they saying anything different? You don't want to read the entire article. You've read it once in Enadu, you don't want to read it in another newspaper. So sometimes you read simply to quickly get an idea of what is it a technical thing? Is it a story? Is it a set of jokes? Then you decide whether you want to read more closely or not. So skimming is a skill that we should develop, and it means recognizing that everything does not have to be read very carefully. And when I say something about reading in the next round, we'll talk about close reading. That is when you're reading technical material, reading your textbooks. There you should be able to read very carefully and understand everything. But if you're reading a pamphlet, you're reading something in the newspaper, it's not necessarily to understand everything. You're just reading it to get the gist, as we call it, the essential information. Now that is the skill of skimming. And this is a skill which many Indian students don't have. And I think what we call skimming, being able to read quickly and get a sense, is something that will help all of us become much more efficient in our use of time.
I'd like to pick up what you said just now, Professor Tharu, about reading the Enadu. I'm surprised, I'm sure our viewers will be surprised to find that you're referring to a Telugu paper. How could one read English through a Telugu paper? Just a little aside. I want you to say, I think, something about skills being common to most languages, that these skills are not really exclusively for English only. These skills could as well be there or are there in other languages as well. Because once we practice these skills, it's possible to read other materials, not only the materials in your English course book, not only the materials which are in English, written in English, but materials of other languages, materials in other subjects which you mentioned earlier. Subjects like economics or history or social sciences or political science or maybe even sciences. So it's possible to do that, and I think that's...
Yes, I'm glad you picked up that point. In fact, I refer to Enadu very deliberately because I know many of you probably are not readers of English newspapers. What I did this morning was, after I read the Indian Express, the Deccan Chronicle is also there, to decide now, do I want to read the Deccan Chronicle very carefully? Something about, Lala Amarnath passed away. Now, I'm sure the story about that in the Deccan Chronicle and the Indian Express will be the same. But certain things something about Hyderabad, perhaps there's more detail in the Deccan Chronicle and less detail in the Indian Express. And this is true about the Telugu newspapers you read, or the Urdu newspapers you read, or the Kannada newspapers you read. And I'll emphasize this point that Dr. Ramakrishna just made, that these skills, it's not only that you use these skills for reading economics or mathematics. If you're able to read well in Telugu, you'll be a good reader of English. If you learn to read well in English, you'll become a better reader of Telugu and of Hindi and of Urdu. Similarly, the skills in writing that we are also talking about here, to plan, to be precise, to organize your thoughts and to be clear in writing, is a skill that if you practice it in English, it will also improve your writing in Telugu. So I think this point that was just made is extremely important, and that is what a skill-based course on reading and writing is. This is not so much about English as giving you general skills which will help you with your studies and with your personal and business affairs, whether you're using English or Urdu or Telugu.
Shailaja, could I ask you to talk a little bit about organizing ideas and about writing skills, the way we have presented them, the kind of tasks that you have, for example, the kind of exercises that we have given to the learners. We have tried to, I think, include exercises which are not too much like the ones which we had in our earlier course.
Yeah, sure. When you compare a conventional classroom setting, wherein a teacher enters the class and tells, today's essay topic is this, and you have to complete the essay in 500 words. Your essay should contain an introduction, a body and a conclusion. Now that is very, very different from this kind of instructional materials where it is all self-learning and self-teaching and self-studying. Here the counselor who enters the classroom in a counseling session has to see that all the participants, all the students who have gathered there have to contribute in some way in the form of generating ideas. Now they have to first of all select a topic, maybe put down all the ideas, generate ideas onto the paper or onto the blackboard, then expand on each idea, prepare notes, drafts, and maybe organize similar ideas into one paragraph and a set of different ideas into another paragraph, so that there is a logical way of progression in the essay.
Right.
And then once the rough draft is made, care should be taken that the counselor instructs the students to self-examine what they have written. That is, self-evaluation has to take place then and there in the classroom. Maybe they have to see whether an idea has to be deleted or another idea has to be expanded, include some, delete some, and then make a second draft.
I'm interested by the thought that you presented here, that writing is not, the first draft is never the final draft.
It is not the final draft.
That's an important point to make, and I think our learners should note that.
Writing is a thinking process. Earlier, writing was, the product was most important to a teacher. While examinations, he used to see the end product, what the student has written, and then evaluate. But that is not the case. Today, the focus is more on the writing as a thinking process. It is an evaluation process, wherein student also himself evaluates what he has written and then finally comes to an end draft, which is after the editing he has done himself.
The other point I think I liked that you have emphasized, I think I liked your stressing it, is that the ideas have to be collected, and you're not really emphasizing grammar as much as, or correctness or accuracy as much as fluency or the expression of ideas. Would you like to comment upon that?
Yes, in fact I was going to say that this idea of a rough draft, getting a few points down, in fact is in a rough sense the parallel of skimming.
Yes.
Because what we say about skimming, instead of going through and reading very carefully everything, you want to quickly get some ideas and have it in your head. Now, making a rough draft for a piece of writing is putting down a set of points, and the skills are parallel. So that the reading and writing skills are in many senses related. And I think putting a lot of ideas together and then writing is very important. I think when we were in school, many of us were taught to start writing first sentence, second sentence, third sentence, and then you suddenly had a new idea, you didn't know how to fit it in.
Yes.
So it's important, as Shalija just said, to put all your ideas down in a very rough form, think and plan, group them together, and then start writing.
Yes.
So we are talking more about polishing our writing and improving upon it much later. First, what you are saying is that the ideas are important, and it's not just the grammatical correctness. In fact, we also had teachers going through essays and saying your sentences are not correct, and therefore students getting inhibited, learners getting inhibited, and not even penning down a single sentence because they've not been able to write it correctly. And so you're saying actually that accuracy and correctness should come maybe at a later stage when you're polishing and improving upon your writing.
Can I add something here?
Yeah, sure.
See, apart from the content which is equally important and grammar, these are the aspects where the teacher has to emphasize on. The purpose of your writing, whether what you are able to communicate is reaching the reader or the audience or not. That is the most important thing.
So you're saying think of the target audience, think of the reader, the person who's
that is the
going to
most
read you.
important factor.
Yes. If I may add a small personal experience on this. I remember when I was in school, and I was in middle school, I think, in class 8, class 9, as I was getting into high school, I had a lot of problems writing because I was always stuck with the first sentence. And the teacher I had in class 7 and class 8 just didn't know how to help me. It's only when I went to class 9 and class 10, the teacher there used a different method. Said, look, put down different ideas, scribble it, doesn't matter if it's neat. You can do it in ink, you can do it in pencil. And that made a tremendous difference to me. I really learned to write then, because that teacher helped me to get a rough idea first and then start writing. Otherwise, I was stuck. I wanted that perfect first sentence, and that never came.
In fact, that is called
extremely important point.
In fact, that is called the brainstorming session, which has to be done in the classroom, wherein all the students contribute by putting forth an idea each.
Professor Tharo, we always have this problem from our counselors that their learners are isolated from the urban kind of atmosphere, and that they are not really able to read on their own. They all have experienced a lot of difficulties. So how does a teacher tackle such a problem of teaching learners who do not have the basic English to start reading on their own? This is a problem which our counselors experience, and perhaps you can help them with some strategies, or you can suggest something which they could try out and write to us about.
Yes, in fact this is a very serious problem, because the little contact I've had from people I know who have worked as counselors say that distance education students find reading these books extremely difficult, because they're the ones who need most help and they're the ones who don't have much help. I think as far as reading is concerned, if I may use the strategy that's put into these materials, it starts with short texts. And one important...
could I just stop you there? I think we have a question. Yes, please.
Nice.
Yes, is that a question? We could continue maybe. Okay. I don't think they managed to
connect up.
Yeah.
Okay. A book like this.
Yes. Give me your name, please. Who's calling?
My name is Rajendra Rao.
Yes, from? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Banjara Hills.
Yes, can you give me your question, please?
My question is how to prepare a resume.
Yes. How to prepare?
To get a professional job.
Yes.
And regarding the writing skills,
Yes.
how to be really precise and how to be appealing to the
Okay.
management there.
I'm sure
Professor
that's one
Tharu,
of
you
the
should-
questions which plagues most of our viewers, most of our learners. Would you like to talk about it, Shailaja? But because you said that this is one of the major skills that we do try to, there is I think a section in our materials where we talk specifically about writing biodata, that is with how to write your biodata. And as you know, the first part of it is quite structured, wherein you give your personal information, where you give your name, your academic qualifications, the basic details about your experience. Beyond that, I'm sure what Shailaja has already referred to, and I think she would like to emphasize later, is about writing the personal aspect, the way in which your biodata will differ from the biodata of another person, the way in which you sell yourself almost, the way you present yourself as a kind of a product in the market. I think that's what's important, and there she will tell you a little more detail.
Yeah, I think you already covered what I was wanted to tell. The basic thing that one should remember while presenting a resume is that the employer should be convinced
Yes.
whether you will fit into the organization perfectly or not, because he is not going to pay you or take you and train you unless and until he feels or he is convinced that you are capable of doing that work.
So I think what you're saying then is that you have to keep the person, the reader in mind. When you're writing your resume, you have to think of the person for whom it is intended.
Yes,
you're also
definitely.
trying to say that you write positive things and you write them in an organized
Yes.
fashion. I
And
write
also
them in a
lay
manner-
focus on any achievements you have so far
Yeah, the
had.
special features of your own experience, maybe experience,
Yes,
achievements or
yes.
whatever. I think those things need to be highlighted. Would you like to add to that?
Yes, I think I'll just repeat what you said. I'll just add this, that you might think in terms of what you might call a general resume, of which you have many copies. But when you're applying, especially
To
for
a
a job,
specific job.
if you're applying to a particular place, there must be something in your resume or in a covering letter or something that you add which gives the people there the sense that you've bothered to find out what this company is about.
Is about.
Do they work only in urban areas? Do they have branches all over the place? So I think some indication of you looked at the prospectus of the company or the publicity of the
Or
company.
even the advertisement, I think.
let
Sometimes
it
that
very
gives you
carefully.
the
And
indication.
if you try to find out a bit more about them, nowadays actually many companies are available on websites and so on. So you should be able to add to your general resume
Right.
something that is specific. So highlight those parts which, as Shailaja said, if you've been active in sports, you mentioned that. If you've been a member of a committee or you've been in public relations, you mentioned that. If you won a prize for computer programming, you mentioned that for certain companies, not for certain other companies, or emphasize it.
Yes.
So
In
I think
fact,
the
another important
flexibility.
thing is the employer should be convinced that there is some sort of a willingness in that applicant to learn and to adapt himself to the rules and regulations of that organization.
I'd
That
just
is the
like
most
to add
important
one
thing.
more point to this one, that whatever writing it is, whether it is a resume, whether it is a biodata, whether it is an essay, I think what we are saying again and again is that it has to be relevant to the purpose.
Yes.
And that's what's important, I feel. Because here it's a biodata or a resume. The resume has to be relevant for that purpose. And I think I will stress what Professor Tharu just said about looking at the performance of the company itself and trying to understand their requirement and matching my talent to their requirement.
Yes.
I think that's what's important in the resume, because if I'm able to get some general information about that company or that organization, and if I'm able to say I fit your requirements best, I think that should be
That should
very
appeal to the
positive
employer.
for the employer as well. I'm sure they like it. I think we've answered the question.
Yeah,
very
I'll just finish
okay,
that,
if you want to add
emphasize the
that.
point on relevance. No, it's not about biodatas.
Okay.
I want to relate it to what I've been saying about reading. When you say different reading skills, scanning, skimming, close reading. Again, when you say somebody is a skilled reader, what you're saying is somebody can go to a big book and pick out what is relevant and not try and memorize the whole book.
Yeah.
So we waste a lot of time reading a great deal. So just like a biodata which is 25 pages, which has a lot of rubbish on it, goes straight into the dustbin. Somebody with a lot of experience, a lot of skills, should be able to put his biodata into 5 pages, but highlight those things that are necessary. So this principle of relevance is really what this discussion of skills is about.
And I think it takes us back to what we have said in our writing skills course or the writing skills units in our book, where we specifically mentioned that the reader is important. Who is going to be your reader? For whom are you writing? And that's an aspect that we have considered in our writing units, maybe, and Shailaja has also emphasized
Yes.
where she's talked about it. I think I go on ahead to
Yes, we'll go back to the
we'll go
teaching-
back to our discussion about teaching strategies.
teaching strategies.
Professor Tharu.
Yes. So we were talking about practice in reading and the fact that many distance learners find it difficult to get started with reading, because I can quite understand that they'll see a book like this and get frightened by it. So one of the important jobs of the tutor is to tell them, look, you don't have to read it all in the same way, and to help the student, even the student who says, I don't know any English, I don't know how to start, say, okay, forget about everything, just look at this small paragraph and try and read it. And as I said, encouraging students to read on their own is absolutely important. And in fact, I like to use the word coach. You say you have a cricket coach and a tennis coach and a swimming coach. In fact, for skills development, rather than teacher, because a teacher is one who explains. And in skill development, we want somebody who stands near the student and guides, especially in writing. Can also be done in reading. So the idea of the teacher being there to help the student to get started is very important.
So would you suggest that they do the reading in the class? Do you suggest that they actually ask them to look at these lines in the class and go through them? Would you suggest that?
Well, at two levels. See, a student who comes to a contact program saying that I've read but I can't understand it, if the teacher is sure and you say, okay,
Yes,
you write
please.
again. Okay.
We'll have to interrupt
Yes,
a
I
little.
think there's...
Yes, please. Ask your question. Can you identify yourself first? Say who you are. Yes?
My name is Surya.
Yes. Can you ask your question, please?
I want to know whether how to
Yes.
master the skill of writing.
The skill, master the skill of writing. That's a very large question you have asked. Master the skill of writing.
Yes.
Just a minute. We'll try to answer your question.
I think mastering, it's like a
Yes.
huge goal. The only way you can achieve that is by constant practice.
Yes.
I think practice makes a man perfect, and hence practicing a lot of writing will, of course, improve your writing. That is the only way you can master the skill of
Okay, I'd
writing.
like to add to that. I think I'll say that we have 12 units in our book which are devoted to the skill of writing. So you can imagine that in the short course of 1 year, for our students, distance learners, we have tried to do what maybe you are asking for in a 2-minute or a 3-minute answer. We have tried to do it in 12 units. We have divided the skill of writing into smaller bits. We have divided it into smaller skills, what we call sub-skills. And we have said that you cannot at once, it's like trying to climb a mountain. You don't climb it in one step, you go step by step. And I think what we've said is we go through stages. It depends on where you are. You may be higher up, so you could progress faster through the smaller steps. If you're not, then maybe you'd need more time, because we've started by saying that you need to write short bits, maybe a small paragraph. Maybe we've said we began with short messages, because we said we're not looking at grammaticality. We're looking at the message getting across, the idea which is important. And then we said that you go ahead to writing longer pieces. So we have divided the skill of writing into 12 units there in our book. And what I'm trying to say is that it's a long process, and as Shailaja has just pointed out, it requires time and lots of practice. It's like a child trying to walk. I don't think a child walks right away. He falls, gets up and walks again. Would you like to add to that?
Yes, exactly. I was talking about practice and repetition. I think, as Shailaja said, you practice and practice and practice. Now, this is something that students will have to get used to, because we're used to doing something, that topic is finished and the teacher starts covering portions by going to the next topic. Now, this topic stays with us. Writing, you practice writing, you practice writing. Reading, you practice reading, you practice reading. It's important. But it does not have to be boring, which is why the practice in the units on reading and the units on writing is not the same. The topics differ, but the topics aren't important, but you get an interesting variety of...
In fact, they're just to motivate you. To tell you that it's not only a story which you can read a graph, you can read a picture, you can read anything that you get across. Or if you're writing, we are not saying that you write only short messages, we're not saying only write letters or only write your biodata, we are saying write different types of things. And not just stop at writing one thing, but go on practicing it, go on doing it again and again, and do what Shailaja has pointed out earlier, keep practicing, as also try to improve upon it yourself.
Hello?
Do some self-correction.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello, madam.
Yes, please ask your question.
Hello, madam.
Yes.
Please ask your question.
I am speaking from Nellore.
Yes. Please ask your
Being
question.
professional.
Yes.
I am good in writing. I am good in reading English, speaking English. Everything I am good.
Yes,
Problem
congratulations.
is I am not able to write English properly.
I see.
Is there any technique or course which gives me good technique to develop English writing? Particularly, suppose when I go.
Are you a student of our university?
Hello.
Are you a student of Ambedkar University?
Hello, madam.
Are you a student of my university? Okay, I don't think he has heard me. I think he's asking a very wide question. He says he's good at English. He considers himself to be good, and yet not, perhaps as happens with most of us, we are not satisfied with our proficiency, so we want to improve upon it, and that I think is a very positive point. I'm very glad that he has even tried to bring it to our notice, because that means he's interested in improving upon his skills.
I think there are some short-term courses offered by CIEFL. I think Professor Tharu can talk about
I
them.
would say go to my materials.
Yes.
I would say go to these course materials.
Yes.
That's the reason why I asked him. That's the reason why I said, are you a student of this university? I'd recommend this course. I recommend this foundation course in English. If you go through this course, it will help you in improving your reading and writing skills. And that's my answer.
Yes. Also, since we're not speaking to that caller personally, I would say that since I'm talking about reading, one shouldn't assume that one is a good reader.
Hello.
Yes, please. Ask your question.
Hello.
I think we'll have to continue
Yes,
later.
yes.
Hello.
Yeah, please ask. Please ask your question.
Hello.
Adagandi paraledu. Ask your question.
Hello. Hello.
Then there's some
Yes,
2 or 3
please ask
lines.
your question.
Yes, madam.
Yes,
While at the time of presenting
yes,
presentation,
yes.
so to how much extent it is useful to make use of some idiomatic and national words
Okay.
and some proverbs. So I am doing some course at CIEFL, madam.
Yes.
I am also seeing my Professor Jacob Tharu sir
Yes.
on the small screen.
So
So
this
he
is
is now laughing. He is chuckling himself.
Okay.
Okay, please.
I'll
answer
ask
me.
Shailaja to address this question. I
Okay.
think our learners or viewers want to know, one of our viewers wants to know, what can one do about improving one's skills? He's already...
I think Professor
Idioms and
Tharu can talk about the idioms and
Okay, I'll again, in terms of what we said about flexibility and different types of writing, different types of reading, I'll just say very quickly in relation to proverbs and idioms, that is one style of writing. It's a style of writing which is not so important today, because I think today what we need is flexibility, versatility. One is not only writing essays, because the old syllabuses had a lot of essay writing and précis writing. They're all frozen in one style. Today we want people to write business letters, to write personal letters, to write articles for magazines, to write articles for serious journals, and also to communicate with people who are your equals, communicate to people who come from different places, communicate to your superiors, communicate to people whom you want to help, communicate. So there's a great deal of flexibility. Idioms and proverbs, I think, are like the old elocution. When you stand on a stage and make a big speech, I think it helps. But if you want to explain something, clarify something, examples, I think, are much better than
I think
proverbs
the
and
level
it-
also would make a
Yes.
difference, because if you're trying to write very good or very effective and beautiful English, what he considers as improved or better English, in his words, it is idiomatic English or English which is very full of what today we consider wordiness or the vocabulary. Which
I
is-
think I can just add one more thing here. To be more effective,
Yes, please ask your question. Yes,
I'm Jennifer ma'am.
yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
From KBHB.
Yes, please ask your question.
Okay. Which will be very useful to improve our English skills, whether it is writing skills or reading skills.
Okay, I'm glad that this question has come up, whether it is reading skills or writing skills, which will improve our English in general. I don't think it's possible. I don't know. I'll ask you to react a little later. Let me say one word about this. I think these skills are integrated skills, and it's not really possible to say I'll read and I'll not write, or
Yes.
I'll write and I'll not read. We don't write without reading.
I think all the
But
four
they are all
skills.
related. They are all related. They are integrated.
Yes,
Maybe-
all the four skills, like in any learning a language, all the four skills are involved equally: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. I think you should give importance equally to all the four
We
skills.
focused only on the reading,
Reading and
and
writing.
skills here, because this is distance education material. For the time being, we have put our focus on the reading and writing skills. Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Yes, I am speaking from Mahidipatnam, madam.
Yes.
After enter the classroom, the teacher
Yes.
should concentrate on the lesson or to give some grammar points in the lesson.
Are you talking as a student or as a teacher?
About 7th or 8th class, yes.
Are you a teacher or a student? I mean, what?
I am teacher.
Okay. You want to know whether grammar should be taught? Okay, whether grammar should be
Means
taught.
it is the teacher should start concentration on the listener and concentration on the grammar points first.
Whether the teacher, would you like to react to
Why should
that?
he has to teach first in the class?
That would actually depend, I think, on what the syllabus is. If you're teaching at the school level, you're talking about school. I think if you're talking about the school, it will depend upon, for instance, let me give the example of our materials. Our materials are reading skills and writing skills oriented materials, which means the skills are more important than the content itself. we mean that it's not the story element or who is in the story or what the story is about that we are going to be concerned. Actually, we were planning to talk about it towards the end of our program when we would concentrate more on the evaluation. I think we should be doing that quickly, but there are questions coming in from
Okay.
it. We perhaps put them in, add this material about evaluation. Would you like to say something about what one should teach, whether one should teach grammar or not? If grammar is part of the syllabus, certainly somewhere
Yes, you
the
have
teacher
to.
has to teach it. Grammar has to be taught.
And focus on grammar has to be there in
Grammar-
primary and middle school.
And I think grammar is one of the skills of writing, but we are saying don't focus only on grammar and not concern yourself with the rest of the part of the skills of English. We are saying grammar is important, but don't devote attention only to grammar. Spend some time for grammar, but what do we mean by grammar there? We at least, I think, would not recommend that you teach grammar for itself. What grammar needs to be done is that exercises should be given. A lot of practice needs to be given in the use of. Yes, please. Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Please ask your question.
Hello, I am from IGNOU University.
Yes.
I am studying at Vivekananda PG College.
Yes.
Thank you for asking of Sarija Rani.
Yes.
Madam.
Yes.
Is there any course regarding writing in the IGNOU University?
Regarding writing skills in IGNOU, I think that Shailaja will have to.
There is a course on creative writing in English. I think that course will help you tone your writing skills.
IGNOU has a course in writing skills called creative writing in English. Okay, but that's creative writing in English. Again, to me, our course takes you from the basic to the final stages almost. We have tried to divide all the skills into different sub skills, whereas that particular course, as far as I'm aware, is about writing skills at an advanced level. At an advanced level. It's creative writing in English. It's not, doesn't take you from the basics. I have been associated with it also, and I think
You are one of the counselors
I
for
was
that
one of the
course.
counselors there. It takes you from, it doesn't take you from the very basic stage of writing. Yes, please.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello, is there any difference, madam,
Yeah.
between computer writing in computer biodata and education biodata?
Computer biodata and educational biodata. Is there any difference between writing computer biodata? And would you like to answer that? I think what the computers have done for us, I think, is, I'd say something that I know, is that the computers have provided us a lot of formatted biodata, and I think that's an advantage in one respect, because even as far as letter writing is concerned, the wizard that comes on the computer helps you a lot. It does everything for you, it structures everything for you. The same applies to computers, but I think I'll go back to the point with Professor Tharu made, that computerized data cannot be, it can only be generalized, it cannot be individualized or personalized, and we have to make it personalized. Unless we do that, unless we suit it to the purpose for which it is meant, I don't think it has. We are go back to our question of relevance, where we said that it has to be relevant, it has to be applicable to that particular situation. Yes, please. Sorry, I held you. I held you up. Yes, please ask the question.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, please ask the question.
Yeah, actually, I'm asking you something regarding the electronic commerce. I mean, why don't Ambedkar University have something regarding to electronic
Could we address this question at could you write to us and we'll address it differently? I mean, we also have computer courses. Could we address it in a different forum, please? This is a program for the English foundation course in English. Could we do that later, please? Okay. Can we continue with? Yes?
Hello?
Yes, please ask your question.
Hello, Professor.
Yes,
Could you
please.
explain us the difference between skimming and scanning, please?
Skimming and scanning. Can we come back to it briefly?
Okay, that's an old problem. Different books sometimes use the terms in slightly confusing ways,
Yeah.
but the way it's used in the book, I will say scanning is where you're going through a lot of material in order to pick up what you want. Okay, you're going through a set of old journals because you want to find a particular thing.
So you
which
know
has
what you want.
Yeah.
In fact,
And
you
as
know
soon
what
as
you want.
See it, as soon as you recognize it, you get it. So you're going through names in a telephone directory. As soon as you come to a name that you want, V. Prabhakara Rao, you stop there. So you don't waste time looking at other things. That's what I'd call scanning. That is, you're not looking, you're trying to recognize what you already want. The
Trying to
title of the
locate
book.
a particular information.
Yes, very specific information.
Almost putting it under a microscope.
Yes.
And whereas skimming is more general.
And skimming is usually through what you normally call a prose text. You're reading sentences and paragraphs when you're skimming. When you're scanning, usually you're looking at material which is in the form of a list or a table. That's not an absolutely fixed rule, but as Shalija just said, you're looking for something specific when you're scanning, and you're trying to get the gist or general idea of a lot of detail when you're skimming.
Yes, please. Yes.
Hello?
Yes, ask your question, please.
Madam, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Jagan Mohan.
Yes, please.
As a lecturer in Sanskrit,
Yes.
so I would like to ask a question.
Yes.
Because actually most of the lecturers working in Sanskrit, they are not fluent in English.
Yes.
And as well as they want to explain in that, is there any method to learn in easy way, as well as to come out from the psychological effect?
To cover the psychological effect.
Yes.
Would you like to talk? Because Professor Tharu is also an expert in psychology. I'll ask him to answer this question.
No, I think, see, there's no simple way to learn any language. Now, if I wanted to learn Sanskrit, it's going to be difficult. There's no easy way of doing it. But I appreciate your point, because today many students want explanations in English. A lot of material is in English. Everything on the internet is in English. So one has to find ways. And apart
Yes.
from foundation.
Yes. Good afternoon.
I would like to ask,
Yes.
Professor Sanja was referring
Yes.
the 4 skills.
Yes.
I would like to know what are they.
Okay, Shailaja, the
what
fourth.
are the things that everyone who want to develop the English should
Yes, practice.
do or
Okay.
do.
The 4 major skills in learning any language are speaking skills, listening skills, writing and reading skills. These are the 4 major skills involved in learning any language. I think you need to just keep on practicing writing, need to read a lot of books just to know what kind of language is used and how you can simplify the language. I think today the in thing, there was one answer which I wanted to give to a particular person, the call came, that instead of using proverbs and things like that, make it as simple as possible. I think the more lucid your style is and the simple diction you use, it is more effective.
Okay, because you communicate better,
Yes,
you
you
get across to
communicate
more
better.
people. I'd like to just add that listening skills and reading skill are supposed to be passive skills or receptive skills. I'll have to stop again. Okay, I'd like to add to what I was saying just now, that 2 of these skills are called receptive skills, and the remaining 2, that is writing and speaking, are called productive skills. Would you like to say something more about it? Because it means that a person has to actively involve himself and make an effort to do, to write, to produce. So they're called productive skills, I suppose. Would you like to talk about that, and then maybe just briefly tell us about evaluation, because we are really short of time.
Yes.
You can talk about
Okay.
how the evaluation of these courses is going to be done or is done, and how is it different from evaluation of content subjects.
Before that, I'll take half minute to emphasize this point about the receptive skills and the productive skills. Somebody also said earlier that he's good in reading, but he's not sure about his writing.
Yes.
I think all of us in India for whom English is not a mother tongue must be careful when we say we are good in reading or good in listening,
Yeah.
because these skills need practice. And we think that we are not good in writing or think that we are not good in speaking because we are not confident when we speak. We think we make pronunciation errors, and in writing we make grammatical errors. But we must become efficient readers and we must become efficient listeners. If you listen to a lecture, you listen to something on the radio, you should be able to understand most of it. As we said when we started, this is a skills course, and a skills test is very different from a content test. So some of you have actually written in and complained saying that that material from the textbook is not there in the examination pattern. And that's true, and it has to be that way, because as we said, most of the material in the units is for your practice. It is not for you to study like topic 1, topic 2, topic 3 in history or botany or economics. So just as a driving test is where you have to get into a car or a motorcycle and drive around the place, the final test here is to write something or to read something and show understanding. However, while the skill of reading and the skill of writing is emphasized in the question paper, if you looked at it carefully, you will find that there is some grammar and there are some topics which you can describe which are based on the text. So there is something which is part of the familiar. But the important part of the examination pattern here is that you will be asked to show your skill in writing by writing something that is a short piece or a long piece effectively, and to be able to read what we call an unfamiliar passage. Sometimes it's called an unseen passage, because if you've learned how to read, if you've developed your reading skills, then you should be able to read not only what is already there in the book, what you've already read, but to be able to read something new. And that is what the purpose of this unit is. You should be able to go open chapter 3 of your economics book and understand it.
Or any
So
other new text.
anything that is new. So the text, the examination also has
So
a component.
so the question that the examination paper does not actually include passages from the book or has taken up passages which are out of the syllabus cannot be applied here at all, cannot be relevant at all, and we want to emphasize this because the examination is of a different kind. And if you feel that it is too general or something, it is not really that. The purpose is to test you on your proficiency in reading and writing, and that is exactly what the paper is trying to do, question paper is trying to do. This is addressed both to the counselors as well as to the students, and I think this is a point you need to bear in mind, especially because you're going to have your examinations very soon. You're going to take your examinations at the end of this month, and to bear in mind that the examination paper is not just a general paper, as Professor Tharu said. We have included some content areas, a few content areas, things like the exercises in grammar or matching some information or giving some information which is earlier included in the course material. The purpose is not to merely make you recollect, but also to emphasize those points, to reinforce the work, the reading that has been done by you in the course material. Let me tell you also that you may not have been able to come across to us, to phone in and to talk to us and to interact with us during this program. Please do not feel disheartened at that. We will give you a chance to do so in our next program maybe, and we'd also request you to get through to us, to the university. You could write to the academic branch, to the Faculty of Arts, to me personally, and to the university to get your doubts clarified. You could also write to the Director Audiovisual Production and Research Center, or Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University, road number 46, Jubilee Hills, Hyderabad, 5,33,000. And if you feel you would like to ask any questions, make some suggestions for the improvement of the program also, we would request you to do so, because we will take cognizance, we will take your opinion into account. We will definitely keep that in mind. I must once again thank those of you who have responded today, who have talked to us, who have asked us questions. I think we were overwhelmed by the response we got to our discussions, and I must also thank the resource persons who are here with me today for being present and for talking to our learners. I'm sure you will also appreciate that it has been a very interesting session together.
So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us. Thank you once again. And you could, as I told you, write to us as and when you feel necessary. You could even suggest to us whatever changes you'd like made in the materials or in the presentation styles of these sessions, because we would certainly try to help you out, try to provide you any assistance that you require with respect to the materials. This applies again to both counselors as well as students. If counselors would like to phone in or to talk to us or even write to us, I'm sure we'll be able to write back to them and help them out.